BYU offensive coordinator Aaron Roderick implemented a scheme change this offseason for then BYU starting quarterback Jake Retzlaff that I think absolutely benefits Bear Bachmeier more than it would have Jake.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 14-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider, your host here on this podcast. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. All right, coming up on today's show, we're going to be talking some BYU football and some comments from Aaron Roderick yesterday during his media session about a scheme change he implemented in the offseason with the thought it was going to benefit Jake Retzlaff. I think it actually has an even bigger impact and benefit to Bear Bachmeier, and we'll get to that. We'll also get to know new offensive lineman Kyle Safaroke. Could be in line to start as soon as this weekend against Portland State. He's a former FCS player, having played at Southern Utah University, so he is no stranger to playing in these FBS versus FCS games, but now he's on the flip side of things. He's now playing for an FBS program. What does he expect as he plays his first ever game on the home side in Lavelle Edwards Stadium? You'll hear that ahead on today's show, and then we'll also make my weekend picks. Yes, today, Thursday, we have real college football games. It stretches all the way through Labor Day on Monday. Looking forward to the long weekend. We'll make our picks. We're calling Big 12 Big Picks here on the show, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. All right, if you missed it yesterday, Aaron Roderick spoke to the media and had a lot of good thoughts on the readiness level of his offense, more importantly, the readiness of a guy like Bear Bachmeier, how he's been performing in practice. And Aaron said that he's been very impressed with Bear settling in as BYU starting quarterback. Now, there is no substitute for actual live reps when the lights come on at Lavelle Edwards Stadium on Saturday evening, and that'll be more telling than anything else that happened in camp for Bear Bachmeier, because some guys shy away from the spotlight, other guys thrive in it. They call them gamers, and when the lights come on, they seem to play their best, and that's the hope of what you're getting from Bear Bachmeier. But Aaron Roderick had a very interesting comment towards the end of his media session, and he was asked about the C2P system. It's called Coach to Player System. It's the radio headset that is in Bear Bachmeier's helmet that Aaron Roderick uses to call plays. Now, Aaron, you'll hear momentarily, he's going to explain exactly what he did during the offseason, because during the offseason, for a long stretch of it, they thought that Jake Retzlaff was going to be their starting quarterback. Well, as he explains coming up right now, they made a change to their whole philosophy that was going to, in theory, benefit Jake Retzlaff and allow this offense to operate more efficiently and even more quickly than it had before. And he'll explain exactly why he believes it would have helped Jake Retzlaff, but also how it now impacts Bear Bachmeier.
We've refined our system a little bit, so I think we can communicate even better this year than we did last year. We've made a few tweaks to some of our terminology so that we can, be able to talk more before we snap the football. And, I'm not going to be telling him what to do every play. I don't want to fill his head with too many ideas, but definitely can give a couple reminders before you snap the ball.
You simplified play calls in that regard for him?
Well, it wasn't for him. It was actually for Jake. We streamlined our offense for Jake because we thought we were going to try to play as fast as we could this year and get more snaps. And it turned out to be blessing in disguise, though. It turned out to be beneficial for Bear because we trimmed down some of our verbiage.
There you have it. Aaron Roderick explaining exactly what they did. They simplified the play calls with the whole thought that they could play a lot quicker with Jake Retzlaff under center. Now, I understand that. He's a veteran quarterback. He knows this offense, at least he did at that time. And the thought was that if you simplified the play calls, he could more quickly rally the troops, organize them, and take advantage of the defense by getting them on their heels a little bit, and thereby gain an advantage in terms of being able to play at a faster clip than they had previously. The thing about it is, with a simplified play call system, it's actually going to benefit Bear Bachmeier because he's not going to have to worry about making one of these wordy play calls. Any of you have heard those inside the huddle conversations, especially in the NFL. Those play calls from those quarterbacks can be 20, 25 words, and they got some incredible lingo in them, but literally every word that they say has an impact on the play call that they're about to execute. Simplifying that is going to benefit Bear Bachmeier and make his life a whole lot easier. He's got a lot to manage as a first-time starting quarterback at the FBS/Power 4 level, and that goes without saying. But him being able to have a more simplified system, whether it is he's got the play calls on his armband, a lot of them wear that play call sheet on their arm. Aaron Roderick calls down and says, hey, it's play 43. And oh, by the way, keep an eye on the safety, that linebacker, etc. That's going to make life a little bit simpler for him as he's trying to get settled in at the helm of this BYU offense. And while I do not expect BYU to play as quickly as they probably were planning with Jake Retzlaff, simply because Bear Bachmeier is a first-time starting quarterback, he is a freshman, you want to make sure that he feels comfortable, so maybe he played a little bit slower pace. That's all going to benefit him because it's going to take more off of his plate. Aaron Roderick, also in that media session yesterday, was asked about what is it going to take for the veterans around a guy like Bear to buoy him up. And he said, simply the conversations we have had has said, go do your job. There are 10 other guys around Bear Bachmeier, and we have told them, do your 111th, do your job to the best of your ability, and take the load off of Bear by doing what you're supposed to do. Don't do too much. Don't completely whiff on your assignment, but make it as easy as possible as you can on him by just simply put, doing your job. I think that's going to benefit Bear to a very, very large degree. A lot of us are very curious about how he's going to handle his first career start. Yes, it's against an overmatched Portland State team. And it's nothing against the Vikings, but that's a simple fact of life. They are completely overmatched in this game. The line out there continues to rise in favor of BYU. I think our friends at FanDuel had it at 43 or 43.5 last I checked. But the bigger point is you want to make him as comfortable and get him as comfortable as you can in this offense, and having a simplified play calling system that, crazily enough, you implemented for one quarterback, but I think in many respects, at least from my vantage point, I think it's even more beneficial to have that simplified play call system implemented now to benefit Bear Bachmeier, even more than it would have benefited Jake, because quite frankly, I thought at times when BYU went fast with Jake Retzlaff, he played some of his worst football, but that's beside the point. It is no longer the quarterback. It's now Bear Bachmeier. And I think that the system they implemented, like I said, very in an ironic twist of fate, it's going to benefit him. And I think it's going to benefit him even larger than it would have benefited Jake Retzlaff. But we'll see if it ultimately plays out that way, because in the end, it's all about how Bear Bachmeier and the BYU offense executes. If they can't execute the plays that are called, they're not going to do anything. They're going to be dead in the water. So it's all about execution. It's all about making sure that you go out there and ultimately make the plays that are there to be made on the field. But if you can make life just a little bit simpler and allow a guy like Bear, whose head is absolutely going to be swimming, it feels like, no matter how brilliant he is, and by all accounts, he's absolutely just an exceptionally bright young man. There are still so many things he's got to handle here as a first-time starting quarterback. Taking as much as you can of that off of his plate, I think it's going to be super super beneficial. I wanted to say superior, but yeah, super beneficial for him as he settles in for his first career start on Saturday night. And I, along with 60,000 plus of you out there in Cougar Nation, will be there at LaVell Edwards Stadium, hoping to see some fireworks from this young man. And I'm very excited to see if he can rise to the occasion, and if this implemented simplified play call system, if it does have a benefit to him, we'll see how it all plays out come Saturday night. All right, coming up next, a guy that will likely be on the field at some point, whether he's starting or simply rotating in, Kyle Safaroke. I think he's got an interesting backstory as a former FCS player. He's played for Southern Utah against the likes of BYU, but more importantly, he has got a vantage point or an experience factor that you can't discount going into matchups like this. And he'll explain exactly what he expects from this, his interactions with Bear Bachmeier, who he could be protecting along that offensive front, and a whole lot more. And we'll get to that in an exclusive conversation next. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Upside. Are you still paying full price for gas, everybody? Stop leaving that money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app today in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use the promo code football, and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already are buying at the pump. At first, a lot of us, probably yours truly, thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just like they make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out at any time to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and many other brands. The best part is you do not want to let this offer drive by. Download the free Upside app today using the promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time. Get 25 cents per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. But once again, use the limited time code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25 cent per gallon bonus from our friends over at Upside. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends at Supply House. When opening whistle blows on a new repair, you get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. And the best part is their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. The best part is if you need parts fast for a project, they have next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer, making sure that you are back on the job as quickly as possible. The best part is they have the part finder tools and 3D schematics that can save you hours on the job, where every detail matters as you're trying to make money along the way. Join the free Trademaster program today at Supply House and score various perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line from our friends at Supply House. Go to supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use the promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. All right, time to let you guys get to know another BYU player. This time, it's Kyle Safaroke. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, this guy came into BYU as a transfer from Southern Utah. There was some thought he could maybe end up as a starting guard for BYU, and that very well may end up being the case because, as Aaron Roderick said yesterday, they are likely to be without Waylon Lapuaho in this week's game. He said there's 6 to 7 offensive linemen he thinks are capable of being along that starting offensive front. And one of those 6 to 7 is probably headlined by Waylon Lapuaho. But a guy like Kyle Safaroke, if Waylon is indeed unavailable, that allows Sfarcioc to slot in and play potentially, and maybe even start in his first game as a BYU Cougar. Well, I had a chance to catch up with him because I thought he had a unique perspective. He once upon a time, as you'll hear, played for Southern Utah against BYU at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. He'll tell you about his experience with that, but more importantly, the mindset that FCS players like he once upon a time had when it comes to playing against teams the caliber of BYU, and also talks a little bit about Bear Bachmeier, LJ Martin, and a whole lot more in an exclusive conversation right here on Locked On Cougars.
Kyle, I want to start off by looking at where you've come from. You come up from the FCS level, and you're playing an FCS opponent this week. What's the mentality when you are playing at that level about going against teams like a BYU who are up a division?
You got to do all the little things right, like you got to give a lot of effort. So I'm expecting these guys to have a lot of effort just because, like, being an FCS O-lineman previously, like, you have to give effort at that level to get noticed in any manner. So, I got to expect good effort from these guys and a lot of good plays by them, and it's going to be a fun game.
Did you ever play PSU when you were down there at SUU?
I did not.
Okay, so you're not necessarily as familiar with their schemes. What have you seen on film from them?
A lot of quick movement,
okay,
and a lot of grit. So they're really gritty. Just because FCS don't have much, but
sure,
you got to do what you got. So,
well, you talk about the gritty and the quickness because they have to counter some of the size, I would imagine, with that speed, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Just because the grit.
Now, in terms of your transition here to BYU, just overall, how's it been?
It's been good. A lot of fun. It's really, really good here, and the team is awesome, and it's been fun working with everybody. So it's been good.
Did you know much about BYU in high school during your time at SUU? Like, what was your familiarity level with it?
I didn't really know BYU when I was in high school. They thought of recruiting me during COVID, and that didn't work out. And then ended up going to SUU, and I remember thinking about the Utah schools. Like, we got Weber, Utah Tech, then Utah, then BYU. Yeah. And I always knew Utah just because it's the state name. And then BYU, I was like, okay, because we would watch film at SU about BYU and how they would run all these good schemes back in 2-3 years ago, and everyone runs BYU's offense. Yeah. It's a lot of people have taken it, so that's how I learned about BYU, which is pretty cool.
What sold you on BYU when you entered the portal and they started recruiting you then?
I would say Kalani and the mindset of the team.
Okay.
We're gonna attack football, but also gonna attack being a good person off the field, and I think that's what really got me was that like, you can be like have that high tier athletic ability, but off the field, it's like, what can you do to be a good person? So that's what made me want to come here, and the staff's amazing, the boys here are amazing, so I think BYU is the best choice out of the portal.
In terms of your position, you're an interior offensive lineman playing center, playing guard. Do you have a preferred position, or do you just want to play?
Just want to play.
Okay.
Anywhere. Anywhere.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to a game at Lavelle Edwards Stadium?
I played there.
Okay, so you went. Yes,
yeah.
you came up a few years back. Okay.
Yeah.
What was the experience like being on the other sideline?
It was good. Like, I came in there like, okay, let's beat these guys. Like, give everything I got.
Yeah.
Like, they obviously don't think I could play at this level. So it was pretty cool because you don't really hear, like, I was like, okay, it's not that loud. Then it got backed up, and I feel like my quarterback was in the stands. So I was like, okay, that was pretty loud. But I don't know, it was awesome. Like, the fact that it was that loud at noon, I was pretty impressed. And it was just cool because a lot of people on the team grew up in Utah talking about BYU. And being able to go up there and play, it was pretty fun. So
I want to circle back to something you said. You said that SUU has watched film of BYU. What about their scheme was what you guys were watching? Was it run fits? Was it passing game? Like, what was it?
Yeah, just a lot of passing game. Like, as you know, when other players watch other teams' films, it's all on the film room. So we would pull film from any team you could think of, and we would just watch it. And, like, that's how, you try to do what they do.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's not going to be as good. But, yeah, we would just watch BYU's O-line and how they would run certain plays, and we would try to replicate that for our offense and go off from there. So
you played in front of a really, really good running back last year in Targi Lamson.
Yep.
Where do you think that he would stack up with against a guy like LJ Martin?
Targi, he's a gritty dude. I remember we're in the huddle. Someone keeps chopping him, and he's like, I'm going to hurdle this guy. I was like, all right, next play, hurdles him. So he's a gritty dude just from that experience, and obviously his stats from last year. But, LJ's a gritty dude too, and that dude works harder than anyone I know here or anywhere else I've been to, and he's been working a lot. And just watching him on the field, man, he's a quick, speedy guy, and and it's gonna be fun to watch. So I'm pretty excited about that. So I would say, I don't know, they're both my boys.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
It's a hard question.
Yeah.
But yeah, LJ's a dog for sure. Like,
you have a freshman quarterback making his first career start, and you'll obviously be helping protect him. What's been your interaction with Bear? What was your reaction when he was named the starting quarterback?
Interaction with Bear, when he first got here, I was like, oh, your name is Bear. That's cool.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just been normal. Like, just how it's a process. So you talk to talk to everyone the same. So it was good. Like, I don't really think of him being a freshman. Like, I just see what he does on the field, and I'm not the one who makes those decisions. So that's good for me because that's a hard decision to make. And I trust in everybody, and I'm cool with every quarterback. They're all awesome. They all can play ball. And obviously Bear, QB1, pretty cool. And yeah, I don't. What's the other question?
Well, I was just gonna say, in terms of his personality, because I know Tiger's speaking to the media right now, and I've heard so much about Tiger and his time at Stanford. He speaks Chinese. He's a computer science grad.
Bear's like a guitar guy, like loves to sing and stuff. Or I don't know.
Well, he told the media that. He said, I like to play the guitar. He said, wagon wheel apparently.
No, he's a cool guy.
Okay.
Like, that's what I'm saying. They're all the quarterbacks all have their own things.
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
Is there a unique characteristic about him as a player that you've been impressed with?
Just his ability to adapt as a freshman. Because obviously the level of play is a lot faster, and him coming into this high level of a program and being able to do what he does, that's obviously impressive because we were all freshmen once, and bullets are a lot faster up here. So,
what are you looking forward to most about being on the home side of things at Lavelle Edwards Stadium on Saturday?
Obviously, like atmosphere.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to be in the see how the process of this level of football, like the FBS level of game days, and just being able to lock in. Because at the end of the day, it's kind of the same thing. You prep in the locker room and get ready on the field, no matter who's out there. It could be 5 people, it could be 60,000 people, but it's all about you versus the guy against you. So it doesn't really it's awesome, but you can't get too hung up on that because it could get you. So
A little quieter on offense, though, right?
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle, thanks for the time, man.
Yeah, no problem.
A big thank you to Kyle Safaroke, and he's obviously going to be operating in a much quieter environment than when he did playing for Southern Utah, because we all know that Lavelle Edwards Stadium, when it gets absolutely rocking, there are very few places like it. The sound reverberates off the aluminum bleachers, and it's a cacophony of noise. I've used that term on this podcast. I hear a lot of people use that term, but that's exactly what LES is when it's absolutely hopping, and very much looking forward to that being an impact for Portland State when they have to deal with that on Saturday evening. But more importantly than that, I think Kyle Safaroke's got a very, very keen sense of who he is as a player, but more importantly, what his role is with this BYU football program. Yeah, he probably came in hoping to be a starting offensive lineman, and that very well may end up being the case, but he's had to battle for everything he has been given so far at BYU, and you can tell that his mindset is, I just want to play football. Give me the chance. So I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to seeing him and the rest of the BYU offensive line doing their thing in front of guys like LJ Martin and Bear Bachmeier on Saturday night, and hopefully a handful of other, if not multiple other players in terms of backups, 3s and 4s, as this game hopefully will be out of hand at some point. All right, we'll finish up today's show coming up next, making picks. Big weekend ahead in college football. It starts actually tonight, or actually this afternoon. Boise State plays at 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Crazy. They're playing at USF, but even 5:30 on the East Coast. That's an early kick time, but we're making picks next. We're calling Big 12 big picks, and we're going to let you know who I think is going to win this weekend, and we'll get to that next right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Now, college football is back, and obviously, yours truly, as well as everybody, couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands are just nothing like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping out at checkout, and everything else in between. That's why I want you guys to use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees, and what you see is what you pay. There's nothing being added in the end. You pull up the Game Time app in just a couple of taps, you can see incredible deals. You're talking about your favorite team. If it's BYU or literally anybody else, for tickets as low as $25. That's the best part about this. They also have zone deals. Pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big along the way. And it's honestly cheaper, faster, and less stressful than any other way when I have bought tickets in the past. I love the fact that I see exactly what the price is right up front. There's no surprise fees being tacked on in the end. So take a guess. We're going to buy your tickets and do it with our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off on the Game Time app. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. And the best part is you can download Game Time today and get started with our friends over at Game Time. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. I do want to remind you guys, I meant to mention this earlier. I want you guys to check out, and it's a great opportunity for you guys to sign up to our listener survey. Locked On wants to hear from you. They want to hear about your thoughts about what you like, what you don't like, and even thoughts about questions, thoughts on the advertising, no matter what your thought process is on our podcast. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey and get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey, where you can find the link also in the show notes if you're looking for it. Thank you in advance for helping us out. All right, implementing a new thing that I want to do here on the podcast called Big 12 Big Picks. Now, last week on our Friday edition of the show ahead of week 0, I made 2 picks for the Big 12 teams in action. Or actually, 3 Big 12 teams, I should say, over last weekend. I picked Kansas State to beat Iowa State. Well, I was wrong on that one, but I did pick Kansas to handle Fresno State. So I went 1-1 in my picks. And I don't necessarily want to do it against the spread. I know a lot of people, you got to do it against the spread. That's the only way to really, truly tell. Whatever. I just like to pick winners. That's the thing I enjoy doing. So call it the money line, call it what you will. I just like to pick games. I think there's a really, really nice slate of games this weekend, both in the Big 12. And we'll also include some of the bigger games nationally, because there are 2 in particular, I think, of national importance that I absolutely want to weigh in on. But I'll also say this. I'm not going to predict BYU Portland State tomorrow. I'll just say this. BYU is going to win. I'll get you my full score prediction on our preview edition coming up tomorrow on the Friday edition of this here podcast. But let's start off with my picks for this weekend. Let's start off in the Big 12 Conference. It obviously starts on tomorrow. Actually, so UCF plays tonight against Jacksonville State. So these games that have the FCS teams, UT Martin at Oklahoma State, Stephen F. Austin at Houston, those are games I'm not going to pick because, quite frankly, FCS teams are supposed to win. FCS teams. FBS teams are supposed to win. Let me correct that before I get lambasted. So I'm not picking the FCS versus FBS games, but I will pick the games that feature FBS versus FBS games. And the first one up is Nebraska and Cincinnati. And this is a neutral site game. It's being played at Gayha Field at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, Missouri. Any of you who are listeners to the New Heights podcast heard the Kelsey brothers riffing on the fact that they think Cincinnati could be very good this year. I'm not sold on Cincinnati. I am a believer in Nebraska. I think Matt Rule going into year 3 has got some things cooking for Nebraska. So give me the Cornhuskers to take down Cincinnati. Sorry, I'm not supporting the Big 12, but I've got Nebraska beating Cincinnati in that one. I'm interested to see how it all plays out, though, because neutral site, it absolutely changes the dynamic there. Then tomorrow night, you got 2 games I want to mention on Auburn and Baylor. I think this is a game that could really key Baylor's chances of truly being a Big 12 contender. Now, that sounds crazy to say in the season opener, but Dave Aranda has been under some heat, obviously, and he's got a very good quarterback in Sawyer Robertson going up against a guy in Hugh Freeze who's got similar type I'm not impact, but maybe more like he's got a little bit of a hot seat action going on where pressure is mounting on him. These 2 teams are absolutely going to get after it. Jackson Arnold, who BYU once upon a time played in his first career start. Remember, that was in Provo in late November in 2023. Well, he's now the starting quarterback at Auburn. And I am going to take Baylor by a nose in this one. The spread from our friends at FanDuel has Auburn as a slight favorite, but I've got Baylor winning this one outright. And I think the Bears are going to kick off the season in style. And we've also got Georgia Tech at Colorado. Now, BYU's first Big 12 opponent is Colorado, and looking forward to that one in about a month's time. But Georgia Tech comes to Elevation. And remember the last time BYU played Georgia Tech at Elevation? Oh, yeah, that was the Daniel Coates doing the dance in the end zone. It was 2003, I think. It was the opening series. He goes right down the field. He catches a big touchdown pass, and he's dancing in the end zone. A memory I will never forget. But give me Georgia Tech to beat Colorado. I just think that Caden Salter and Colorado need some time to settle in, whereas Georgia Tech, I think that they're little more impactful early on this season. So give me the Yellow Jackets, right? The Ramblin' Wreck to win that one. Coming up on Saturday, though, Utah at UCLA. Now, this is an interesting game because Nico Iamaleava takes over as the starting quarterback in Westwood against Devin Dampier and the Utah Utes. And JT Wister, still from Locked On Utes, is going to like hearing this. I am picking Utah to win this one. Now, the line is Utah's been as high as a 6.5-point favorite with our friends over at FanDuel. I don't think Utah covers. The more I think about this, I think it's going to be a tight affair. So give me Utah something like 27 UCLA. Almost said USC. Almost said USC. But UCLA like 24. So like 27-24, I think it's a tight contest. But Utah does get the win in the Rose Bowl, which is something they have not been able to say in the recent past. All right, other games I want to pick real quick in the Big 12 include Hawaii at Arizona. Now, Hawaii took down Stanford, who BYU will see next week. Arizona, I think, is the absolute dregs of the Big 12 until proven otherwise. I do like some of the pieces of what Arizona has, but I just don't know what Brent Brennan's really going to bring. So I am going to call it right now. I'm concerned that Micah Alejado, I think is the quarterback's name from Hawaii. He essentially completed that game, like 2/3 of it on one foot because he injured his leg in that game. If he is immobilized, that's going to make life very difficult for Hawaii to spring an upset on the road. But hey, what the heck? Give me the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors on putting them on upset alert to take down Arizona. Arizona is a 17.5-point favorite. So if you're going by the spread, I would take Hawaii to cover simply for the points, but that's beside the point. There's a pun. And then the final one in the Big 12, TCU versus North Carolina. It's Bill Belichick's first game as a head coach at the collegiate level. Crazily enough, a couple years ago, remember TCU faced Deion Sanders in his first game at the helm of the Colorado Buffaloes. It was a wild affair for TCU in that one. I think TCU is going to get the job done here at North Carolina. They have to go on the road, but I think they spoil the opener for Bill Belichick, and I think that the TCU Horned Frogs get to 1-0. Line currently TCU a slight favorite on the road, so it's not maybe necessarily an upset in terms of the sports books, but I just think TCU they have got some pieces there, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they're capable of doing. And then in the national scene, there are two games in particular I want to weigh in on, and one of them is the 1 versus 3 matchup. Is going to be taking place at the Horseshoe in Columbus, Ohio. It's number 1 Texas against number 3 Ohio State, and Texas is the first ever team ranked number 1 in the preseason poll to be an underdog in their season opener as they go on the road to Ohio State. Give me Sark. Give me the Longhorns. I think that Arch Manning's ready to shine. I know there's been a lot of talk about him entering the NFL draft after the season. His grandfather said so, and then he fires back. I don't even know where he would have heard that. Whatever. I like Arch. I like Sark. Speaking of Steve Sarkisian, the former BYU quarterback, I think they get the job done. And I think just the turnover that Ohio State underwent during the offseason, notwithstanding they won the national title last year. Yeah, they opened their title defense, but they go to 0-1 to start the season. And the other game I wanted to pick is the other top 15 matchup, and that is LSU at Clemson. It's the Battle of Death Valley. As both of these programs, their stadiums are known as Death Valley. I learned from the Solid Verbal that history says that Clemson actually has the original Death Valley. We got number 9 LSU at number 4 Clemson, 2 of the elite quarterbacks this year, and Cade Klubnik for the Tigers against Garrett Nussmeier for the other Tigers, speaking of LSU. Looking forward to this matchup, but I'm going to give Clemson the edge at home. I just think that they get the job done. I think Dabo Swinney's going to be feeling really good about himself, and I'm sure he'll be preaching to the masses something after this one goes final. Yeah, but give me Clemson to beat LSU. So those are my picks for the weekend. We'll be keeping a running tally this season. I'm 1-1 on the year because, as I mentioned, I picked Kansas State to take down Iowa State. That obviously did not work out in my favor last week in Dublin, but then I did get the game between Kansas and Fresno State. That was more of a given, it felt like, in many respects, but we're 1-1 on the year, and we'll see what the weekend holds. We'll update you guys next week on Tuesday once all of these games are finally in the books. All right, that is going to do it for today's edition of the show. Like it, rate it, subscribe, rate, review, share with your family and friends. Let us know what you like about the show. This is the first of year 8 on the podcast. As we mentioned, if those of you are everydayers yesterday, it was our 7-year anniversary yesterday of our first ever episode. So we're off and rolling in year 8 of the podcast. And as always, thank you for your support of this year venture. I want to encourage you guys, if you have not checked it out already, check out Locked On and Fire TV's new college football kickoff. It's your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Tolo, our good friend over Locked On Big 12, is leading the conversation alongside 2-time AP Coach of the Year, Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Hawley, and our Locked On podcast networks, a college preview show like only Locked On can do. Catch the college football kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV, and also coming to the YouTube channels wherever you get your podcasts for the Locked On Podcast Network as well. So once again, thank you for your support of the podcast. As always, enjoy whatever's left of your day. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day, and be right back here tomorrow as an everydayer right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.